All right. So, what form are these two in right now? 1 and 2. Then? What do we call that form? No, that's a quadratic equation. But that's a, what do we call that form? Yeah, it's not standard. Remember, standard form, here's standard form. Okay? That's standard form. What do we call this one? What can we tell by just looking at it? Well, we can tell the y, well, not really the y-intercept, no. What do we need to know to graph a parabola? What? The vertex, yeah. So this is vertex form. Okay? What's the vertex of this one? What? Close. 4, 3. What's the vertex of this one? Negative 6. Negative 11. Okay? It's the opposite of what's in the parentheses. It's what makes the parentheses 0 for the x value of the vertex. And whatever this is the y value of the vertex. Remember, it's hk. Remember, vertex form is this. A times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. hk was our vertex. That you should be able to still do. Okay? So, what's b squared minus 4ac? That means to do what for b? Square it. You guys understand you're just substituting in, right? You guys can do that, right? Just substitution. Okay? So remember, we're still talking about quadratic functions, quadratic equations. This chapter, we're not done with it yet. Okay? We've learned how to solve by graphing, which is where the parabola, if it opens up or down. How do we know if it opens up? What's positive? The a value is positive. If it opens down, the a value is negative. Right, Trent? Okay? So both of these would open up, right? What's the c value? That's the y-intercept. So the y-intercept for this one's 5, for this one's negative 3. Okay? Just trying to review some stuff we should know already. Okay? Right, Kennedy? Mm-hmm. You awake? Doesn't look like it. All right, so those are some things that we still should remember. All right? We solve by completing the square. We solved them by the square root method. That was when there was no x value, no b value, I mean. B was 0. Okay, we just got the x squared part alone. Then we took the square root of both sides. Completing the square was when we made sure a was 1. We took the c value to the other side. We took half of b and squared it to fill in the blanks. And we factored it to something squared so we could square root both sides. All right, so today we're going to use the quadratic formula. All right, this is from freshman year. Okay? So you just need to learn the quadratic formula to get. So again, quadratic equations, we did graphing. You could make tables. That's part of the graphing, factoring, using square roots, completing the square. All right, so the method we're looking at today is the quadratic formula. And right there it is, so write it down. Maybe you still remember it from freshman year. But negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay? We can use this quadratic formula to solve any quadratic equation written in standard form, including equations with real solutions or complex solutions. Remember, the complex ones have the i's in them, right? The square root of negative means we got to pull the I, the imaginary unit, out. Okay, so this number here, whatever your b is, goes in for the two b's. This number here, whatever the a is, goes for the two a's. And then whatever your c is, goes in for the c. And then we just solve that, we simplify that, put it in simplest radical form. Okay? Just like we did on the stuff, the quiz we had last Tuesday. We put stuff in simplest radical form. You guys did a good job on that quiz too. All right, so here's an example. You just go x equals negative b, and b is negative 16. Again, if you want to write on the side what a, b, and c is to help you, you can. You don't have to. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. We just substitute into the formula. So again, a is positive 2, b is negative 16, and c is 27. There, you don't put any variables in the formula. It's x equals whatever this comes out to be. All right? Again, you guys did this in Algebra 1, I believe. This should be reviewed on that. Minus or a negative of a negative makes it positive. 2 times 2 is 4. When you put this in your calculator, do not hit the square root button. Just put the negative 16 squared minus 4 times 2 times 27, right? Because if you put that square root in there, you're not going to be able to put it in simplest radical form like you're supposed to. So do not put the square root symbol in your calculator, okay? So negative 16 squared, what is that, 256? Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times 27 would be what? 240 minus 24, is that 216? Which would be what? 40? That you guys got when you put it in your calculator? Anybody put it in their calculator? Danny, was that right? 40? Thanks. Okay, so this would be a 40 right here. Now, to put it in simplest radical form, we do our little factor tree, right? So it's 4 times 10. And I'm going to stop there because 4 is what? A perfect square, right? Is there any other perfect squares inside the 10? Just 2 times 5, right? So we don't really have to go any further. So I'm going to pull the 2 out. So I got 16 plus or minus 2 square root of 10 over 4. Okay, I'm still not finished. Look at these 3 numbers. What goes into all 3 of them? 2. So we should simplify that. So we got one more step. Let's go like this. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. 2 divided by 2 is a 1. You don't have to put the 1. If you do, it's okay. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. I cannot take the 2 into the 10 because the 10's under the radical sign. So that's what we want it to look like. Very similar to the ones that we had last Tuesday. If this was a negative 40, everything's the same except what else do I pull out?
I.
The I, right? So you might get some negatives under there. That's okay. We'll just make sure we remember to pull our I out of there. Okay? Any questions on that? All right, you guys try this one, please. What's a negative times a negative? Positive. So we should have what number under the radical sign? What number though? 37, right? X equals, here's what I do. I always put parentheses where my A's, B's, and C's go. That way you won't mess up on signs. That's just me. But If you always use the parentheses, your signs will never be wrong. So that's my suggestion. But sometimes you guys make mistakes when you don't put the parentheses in, okay? Okay, so B is 3, A is 1, C is -7, right? So we get -3 plus or minus the square root. This becomes 37 over 2. 37 is a prime number, it won't break down. Okay, because we have a -4 times 1 is -4 times -7 is +28. So this is 9 plus 28, which is your 37. Okay? So I would get in the habit of doing that, and you'll never get the wrong signs. Okay? Questions? Okay, so all these are basically the same then. When it says find the zeros, same thing, right? Or solve, find the roots or the zeros, that means the same thing. All right? Do we need to do another example? You understand how to substitute in, right? Okay. The other part that they talk to you about is that b squared minus 4ac part. That's called the discriminant. All right? That's part of the quadratic formula that you can use to determine the number of real roots of a quadratic equation. So what they're going to ask you for some of your problems is just what type and how many solutions does it have. Okay? The three possibilities are 2 real solutions, which these 2 examples we just did were 2 real solutions. 2 non-real solutions, that's when you got a square root of a what? Negative. Okay, you'll get some negatives under there. That's okay. Just put it in simplest radical form like we did last week. Okay? Or you'll have 1 real solution. And that's when the discriminant equals 0. Okay? So, when your discriminant is positive, you'll have 2 real solutions. When your discriminant, that b squared minus 4ac equals 0, there's only 1 real solution. The vertex is right on the x-axis. It only hits in that one spot. When your discriminant becomes negative, you'll have 2 non-real solutions. And they don't always go up. Sometimes they go down, right? Make sure it's in standard form before you evaluate the discriminant. Okay? So some of your problems, all you have to do is this part. You get a positive, you say 2 real solutions. If you get a negative, you say 2 non-real solutions. If you get a 0, you say 1 real solution. Okay? All right? So that's this one. Is it set up in standard form yet? Got to be equal to what? 0, right? So what I got to do with that -4? Add it. So it's there, right? And then I just substitute in. Just the b squared minus 4ac part. Again, I would use parentheses like they did. -4 squared is positive 16. -4 times 1 times 4 is a negative 16. That comes out to what? 16 minus 16. 0. So how many solutions? 1 real solution. Okay? Again, if that came out to be a positive number, we'd say 2 real solutions. If that answer came out to be a negative, we'd say 2 non-real solutions, because we'd have a negative under our radical, which means we got to pull the I out, that imaginary unit. Okay? So again, just do this real quick. X squared minus 4x plus 8 when I move it over, right? So b squared minus 4 times a times c. Well, that's going to be positive 16. -4 times 1 is -4. Negative 4 times 8 is negative 32. So I get negative 16. Therefore, 2 non-real solutions. Okay? So you have a couple problems like that, where you're just looking at the discriminant. That's it. Easy day. Any questions? All right, here's your assignment. You can get, again, they're just showing you different parabolas. The first two parts, the A and the B is the same. The C's change. Okay? The blue one, there's two real solutions. The red one, there's one real solution. The green one, there's two non-real solutions. Okay? They're just showing you that. Okay? There's all the different ways that we figured out how to solve these. We used our graphing calculator. We factored what we could factor and set them equal to 0. We did square roots, took the square root of both sides. We completed the square. Remember, b over 2 squared, right? Now we're using the quadratic formula. So we just know all those different ways.